Hey, welcome back. Today we are celebrating 1 year of the channel. So it's October 17th as I record this video. October 18th of 2022 is when I posted my first video ever. I'll post this one October 18th of 2023. I was looking at it. It actually has 444 views. It was a welcome to the channel video. And I kind of went through my old collection, a lot of which are shown up here. Up until that point. Then I had a bottom row. Of that bottom row, these are the ones that remain. This is kind of standing in for a black on black version that I just recently gave to a friend. But these were the knives that I was showing on the channel 1 year ago. Today, there's a whole lot more knives in the collection. I still have all my original knives and my love for the Victorinox Swiss Army knives. I still have some of those originals from that original video. These are literally, this is the same banter, the same Rockwall, the same mini bug out, slightly different on this. And then I hadn't found this yet. Actually, the next day, or maybe even the same day, I think it was the next day, I posted a video where I found that knife, which was like my first EDC as part of what I called phase 2 of my collection. There's my early collection when I was a kid. Phase 2, phase 3 is where all this madness has begun. So it's fun to celebrate 1 year of making videos. I don't know if I can find it really quickly. Maybe I can see, 529 videos have been posted to date. So definitely been a busy year. Sitting at just over 2,500 subscribers today. It's been really fun just making some good friends and building some relationships with many of you all. So thank you for taking some time to like and subscribe as you've become a part of my journey, my knife journey. One of the great Instagram names, by the way, is some guy named, or some woman potentially, named My Knife Journey. But I think that one's very representative of what it's been like for me. I went through these different phases, and this current phase is way over the top, but a lot of fun. So I thought it'd be kind of cool to compare some of those early day knives and where I was at that time versus where I am today, a year later, and just talk through that. So this one, I think my grandfather or my dad got for me when I was somewhere in the 7 to 11-year-old range. I think it was probably closer to 8 or 9 because I remember having it. I remember talking to someone about this knife at Cub Scouts when I could not have been more than 10 years old. So I must have gotten that somewhere in that age range. I'd have to ask my dad at some point. And then I got this one because who knows why, I was a kid and I thought more is better. As I clearly still do. But that to me is kind of just a different version of a very similar thing, which is obviously something I do. You can see this started from very early on. In phase 2, I started collecting other kinds of knives. That one and this one are from phase 2. This one was like my go-to on my backpack for my tactical backpack. And then I had a whole bunch of knives like these. In fact, maybe I'll bring it over if I can and just kind of show that phase 2 box. I haven't shown it on the channel too much because it's sort of the dark past of my knife collecting. It's all this tactical stuff and kind of garbage Winchester branded knives and that kind of stuff made in China, just very garbage stuff that I got at Big 5. So let's skip ahead a little bit to phase 3. Phase 3, I started buying $100 knives, $300 knives, $150 knives, right? And that phase 3, I started really learning like what I loved in a really good everyday carry pocket knife, just based on research, blade steel, lock mechanisms, pocket clips, materials used in the scales, the many different things. I learned how to sharpen better than I did. I had very rudimentary sharpening skills prior to a year ago. Learned how to sharpen a lot better. I do freehand sharpening now on diamond stones. And then it took, escalated to another level. I remember when I bought this tactile Rockwall for $300 and I was like, whoa, this is a big step up. But like, I didn't have to go quite as far as buying a Chris Reeve when I bought this and spending $500+ I was like, I can kind of get my brain around 300. It's titanium scales, it's Magna Cut. I was really into Magna Cut when I learned about it a year ago. Now I don't actually care as much about some elements of blade steel as I did right then. At that point, I was literally just trying to buy Magna Cut knives for a minute, which was kind of a fun part of the journey. I learned a lot more about what I like in the knife action and, the ideas of the different closing and opening mechanisms, the thumb flick, the reverse flick, the rollout being my top three. And then occasionally I go for a front flipper, like I did with the Gareth Bull Sham here, and have learned to appreciate a good front flipper as well. But I actually had this whole scoring mechanism I used in many of my early videos to like review the different knives objectively as possible. And some of those things kind of carried with me, some of them didn't, because I just started to appreciate different things over time. And then as phase 3, we'll call 3.1, started to escalate, I found knives like the Oz Roosevelt that I realized just played the game on a slightly different level than other manufacturers. They were doing things that were so efficient in terms of ergonomics, in terms of weight, and blade length to weight ratio, that they were just some makers that were playing a different game. I think about Brown Knives making his own proprietary locking mechanism, the Brown lock here on this mini FSD. This was like a whole different level of things. Some knives that were more love-hate, like the SBK Lumia. I love this version 1 for a lot of reasons, and I like his version 3 a lot. The version 2 didn't meet a lot of people's, success criteria, if you will. And then finding out was just technically possible with something like a VC Edge interface, and understanding like, okay, there are levels to this. This guy's creating a 3.625 inch blade length at a 1.5 ounce knife that actually can hold up and work on a daily use kind of paradigm. Totally different. And then I was actually looking about a month into the channel is when I bought this guy. It was my first $1,000 plus knife. In fact, it was over $2,000. Table price on these Demco Magna Cut 80/20 customs are $2,000. And if you try and buy them on the secondary, if it's one like this, you pay more, especially back then. I mean, they were going for $3,000. I didn't pay that much for it, but I definitely paid over the $2,000 table. And this is when I got to a whole different level of like, okay, customs are a whole different thing. You can see I have quite a few customs here. These Scott Hansen customs can go for $2,000, $3,000 very easily on the secondary market. They're over $1,000 table price. Same thing with the Gareth Bull Shamwari. And learning like the tolerances and really the magic that some of these makers can do with their detent and really smooth action and satisfying detent. And I realized, okay, there are other levels to this also in terms of fit and finish and precision and tolerance that I was not initially aware of during these phases of my knife journey. I definitely knew like there are knives I liked more and less. I don't think I fully understood why I liked them. Like, why was it that this thing became my go-to EDC out of my 20 crappy pocket knives that I bought in phase 2? Well, it turns out that it actually had quite good action, quite good ergonomics, quite good weight ratios, and it worked. Like, this is a really good knife for $25 or whatever I paid for it back then. This actually compares very well to much more expensive knives on the table. So I've always had a little bit of a sense for it, but didn't quite know how to articulate it, how to shop for it. And then I got into the community, and the community showed me how to go onto Facebook, how to go on to Reddit Knife Swap, how to use blade forums. I probably started with blade forums, so in this opposite order, it was blade forums, Reddit Knife Swap, Facebook, how to buy stuff safely on Facebook. You have to be really careful on there and get validation that this person is who they say they are, and that they actually have the knife that they say that they have, and that they're actually going to send it to you when they ask you to pay PayPal friends and family instead of goods and services, right? So there are many different elements I learned there. And then getting to the next level, trying to find very rare versions of knives that I love, not just buying a Roosevelt, but buying the Roosevelt, the one that I wanted the most out of all of them, and going to an actual knife show. And that was the first time I had done that. I had never gone to a knife show and actually tried to find something super rare like that. On the secondary, finding this very rare Hansen Onyx with this wild Firestorm, I think it's called. Nah, this one, I can't remember the name of it off the top of my head. Oh, it's gonna drive me crazy, as you know, if you watch the channel. It is a Nichols Intrepid Damascus. blade, and very hard to find something like this. He's probably only made one like this, maybe two, maybe there are a handful, I don't know. But in that exact configuration, probably the only one. And then finding out about like super hype knives like the Gareth Bull Chamois there, as well as knives like currently I'd say the McGinnis with the spoke and the Extreme Hunter are two of the most hyped knives on the secondary market right now, to the point where I'm not even buying them. I did buy this super quickly, got a decent deal on it for this prototype spoke that I have here. But man, if I were to try and buy from the wrong person, you know, a scalper, and try and buy, you know, one of these spokes or Extreme Hunters right now, like these things are so hot. I'll actually just throw this guy over here. You know, I'd get totally price gouged on something like that unless I bought it from a friend or someone that's super cool in the community. So I also learned how to do trades. Part of how I was able to get that Damascus Rosie that I showed was by finding a copper accented duck for this guy that really wanted a copper accented duck and couldn't find one. I actually found two. I kept one for myself after doing all the research. I was like, oh, this is a pretty cool variation, and he got a really nice version of that. But you know, really just learning more about how to buy very rare knives has been a fun part of the journey as well. So there's this kind of two parts that I participate on a daily basis, I think, in the community. One is I'm actually carrying the knives and enjoying them using something like the Saz Roosevelt. This Benchmade Mini Bug Out are probably two of my top 10 carry knives right now, versus, you know, maybe something like, I'm not going to carry this, you know, pretty rare Damasteel Holt Morpheus, or this Hansen Onyx. Like I might, just because I got that one at table price, but man, I don't know if I can bring myself to do it just with this beautiful hand rubbed blade. I don't know if I can bring myself to put some scratches in it. It's not an inexpensive knife, even at table price. It's over $1,000. So there's this, you know, collector side of me that's doing collecting things, and then there's the user side of me that treats these things like tools, and those can coexist. And I specifically kind of separate the knives that play one role or the other and make a decision, you know, whether it makes sense to, and sorry, I'm just trying to unlock my computer here, which locked back up in case there's something else I want to reference here on the channel page. But what makes sense, you know, for me from a financial perspective, and from a do I really love this knife perspective, what do I want to keep? This one I just love as a carry knife, so I don't mind using it, carrying it, and I'm going to take some hit potentially on what I spent on it, but that's okay by me. You know, when I pull out this Brown Knives Mini FSDI with a one-of-a-kind Damascus inlay on it, probably one of the best knife actions I've ever handled. Do I feel like carrying this? A little bit, but I more just appreciate it, want to handle it, take pictures of it, and I collect it. That's just kind of how I do what I do. So, you know, you take each of these and these mentalities, in my case, in stride, and you kind of make some decisions for yourself. What part of this is my collection? What part of this is my use? And, you know, I have one out of my VC Edge interfaces that I carry as an example, and you make decisions financially and personally on like, okay, if I were to lose this, could I live with it? And like, yeah, that would really suck, but I can live with losing this knife. I have another one like it, and that's kind of how I justify my way through some of my behaviors, if that's the right word for it. So, you know, celebrating 1 year on the channel, there's been a lot in a year, you know, 500 plus videos. I mean, let me pull up the number. I think I've bought and sold, it's hundreds, but I don't know exactly how many. Let me see if I can get a quick number on how many, but I probably in the last year, and remember there were some knives like these that I actually bought before I started the channel, so maybe it's over a year, but I think I've surpassed 400 or 500 knives at this point. It looks like just hit 400 knives that I bought in that period of time, or maybe it was a little more. I don't know if I'm counting it correctly, just looking at this, the way the spreadsheet is set up, but still have over 100 knives in the collection right now. I've never done a full collection video. I recently, if you want to check it out, did I think 60 plus knives. So like the top half of my collection at that time, you'll actually see a number of these knives were not even in the collection at that time. I've made some serious progress even in the months since that one. And then I've also sold a lot. I had one day where I posted 30 knives for sale, made a big dent in the collection, just got rid of stuff that maybe a year ago I really liked, but today it's not really my style anymore. I've learned a lot. One of the things that I've kind of phased out of that's kind of interesting is I'm very tentative to buy like $300 knives made in China or $500 knives made in China. It doesn't really do it for me. Partly that they can do them in a volume that makes buying a knife that expensive less interesting financially because most of them lose value. And second, I've actually learned like that these manufacturers, even when they get these different designers that maybe make a completely different knife design, the action and the detent and everything end up being very similar. So you kind of get, if you've spent a lot of time with knives, you get a little tired of some of them. Yes, this sharp eye design here, let me just pull this out of here really quickly. Sorry, should have had this one ready. It looks vastly different than, you know, another knife that's made in Riyadh in China, but the action is actually really similar. And this one's very good. Don't get me wrong. This is one of the few Riyadh knives that I've kept. There's less than 10 in the collection now, probably less than 5 if I had to guess. Gotta think about that. There are a few more from Best Tech because I still love the winter blade knives. But I really don't spend much time collecting Riyadh made knives anymore because they're all very similar and they are really nice. Like if you're gonna use it, by all means, like you're not gonna be disappointed in this. But from a collector perspective, as beautiful as this knife is, and it is quite beautiful, the inlay and everything, this is one of the few that I've kind of kept. They're all just kind of the same. And that might be fine if you just love Riyadh knives, and a lot of people do. That's great. In fact, you can get knives that are hands down quality-wise just as good as a lot of what's on the table. But you know, take a look at what they do on the secondary over time. A lot of them, depending on what volume they made them in, will lose a lot of value. And from a collecting perspective, that's not great. There are some that are rare, and like Sharp Eye Design, for instance, also makes a custom US-made version of some of those knives. So don't get me wrong, it's not about brand, it's about manufacture. You just learn the difference of a numbered version 1 SPK Lamia. What that feels like is very unique versus a brown knife, you know, brown knives from Blaine, Washington. So you got New York made, Washington made, Indiana made. Forget where Holt is, Indiana, South Africa, Southern California, Wampum, Pennsylvania. Forget where Nick, or I think his name's not Nick, I can't remember his name. The dude over at Jerry McGinnis. Can't remember where he's out of, somewhere in the South, I want to say. But you start to see Hutzler as an example. They all have these very different feels to them. And you start to appreciate that once you reach a certain point in your experience where you've handled that many knives, and it really hones, you know, what you love, what you appreciate. I think of Jim over at HMC making these transients. These are very different feeling from any other knife on the table. This guy has this really interesting, what he calls, just forgot the name of it. What does he call this? The subliner lock. And yeah, it's just cool to see how all these different manufacturers do these different things. Some of them I've actually made some relationships with, some from the channel, some from just meeting them in person at some of these events I went to recently, and some of them just chatting about knives. A lot of these guys are knife guys too. Some of them are just more engineers, and I make friends with them too. That's fun and cool to talk about engineering and business and that kind of stuff. But at the end of the day, it's all people, and you have to decide, you know, what do you love about the people that make the knife or the knife itself. And it's just been a really cool experience going through all of that, making a lot of the friends that you all know who you are out there that we talk on a daily, weekly, monthly basis. We've bought and sold knives from each other, give each other a hard time about our preferences, and just have fun with it. So it's it's something that I don't necessarily see myself continuing at this pace for a long time. Like, I know folks like Metal Complex build a career around this. Maybe I go into knife making at some point, like in retirement. I don't know. Maybe this channel does end up continuing. Every time I've said I was going to back off, it's ended up getting almost busier, it feels like. So maybe it ends up being something I do long term. But now that I've become more focused and more specific and particular about what I like, I could definitely see a period of time where it's just like not interesting to get another $30 knife in for a review or something like that. And, just focus on things where I see someone's doing something interesting, new, better. I don't mind, for instance, sharing that I found that Blade HQ version of the Benchmade bug out where it's actually G10 and 20 CV blade steel. This to me was a nice little step up from the S30V version. So I didn't mind spending, instead of 150, 200 bucks for that guy. And that's one of my main carry knives now. So gave a friend the blue one that I had, and my brother has the other blue one. So I've kind of just transitioned, right? I don't collect as much of the same knives anymore. Like my Rosie collection's half of what it used to be. I used to buy a lot of the Devo knives. I still do if I like what they're doing. Like I love, and I don't want to say cherish, but nearly cherish my Devo Mash V1. I just think this is a really cool, well done knife. But Devo's got to do really good knives for me to want to buy their stuff made in China. And that's just kind of where I'm at in my journey right now. So it's relevant to the channel and to what I build for content. It's not relevant to what you should buy and or enjoy or whatever. It's just my opinion and what I appreciate at this point. And, this whole channel has always been just sharing my insights and opinions, and those are definitely subjective. So I try and be objective, but they are subjective opinions. That's what opinions are by definition. So I think that's just about it. Where do I see things going from here? There are a few other knives I'm searching out for right now, but nothing that's really top of mind to call out. And we'll just see where you see content coming out. It's probably because something either got sent to me or because I got really excited about it and wanted another version of it, or it's something I hadn't tried and it was worth a try. But I'm actually probably selling more now than I am buying, so probably not a terrible time to reach out to me if there's something in my collection that you want. I'm probably going to reduce my collection. The current knives that I have, probably half of them will go away, so I'll probably take it from, I won't say the exact numbers, but it's probably in the 130s. I just don't know them. It's in the 130s. I'll probably take that down into the 60s or 70s of total knives and just move some of the stuff that I've kind of grown out of or decided to have less replicas of, if not replicas, sorry, but less variants of the same brand here and there. I've found some versions of knives that I really love, and I don't feel as compelled to buy, 15 different Rosies now that I found the ones that I really love, right? Same thing with Demcos. I've bought so many Demcos over time, got to handle a bunch of them, and I have ones right now that I really love and wouldn't want to sell. But I might have some. I think I've mentioned in some recent videos, I do have a few that I might sell. So, but mostly, I'm down to the ones that I really am passionate about. And that's a fun place to be in this journey after a year of just intense exploration of the knife offerings that are available, whether it's US domestic made or foreign overseas built. So that's about it for now. Please like, subscribe. Let me know what you might like to see on the channel or something you think I might like based on my tastes. And you never know, maybe we'll bring it on the channel here. So appreciate you all. Thanks for stopping by. If you made it to this point, thanks for listening to my 24-minute monologue. Take care and have a good one.